kid seemed to have done his dad proud, but suddenly the record got ugly. Arrest for suspicion of embezzlement of federal funds. Started with a not guilty plea in the military court. Insufficient evidence. Prosecuted for assault, perjury. Pled nolo conditare for those charges. What assault? There it was. Fistfight with an officer. Assault, perjury, resulting in a year in the United States disciplinary barracks up north of Leavenworth. Military prison. And then, dishonorable discharge. Not so proud after all. Oh, kid. What did you do? Pierce muttered. Who was this officer he'd gotten into ruckus with? Varick, the document said. A Major Varick. Definitely not a good idea to punch out a major when you're a mere NCO. Pierce remembered a dirty-faced boy, maybe 13, running up and down the sidewalks. Every so often the boy would see Pierce on the corner, ask cheerily, "What's up, Aiden?" Young Mick Wolf wanting to seem like an important guy on the street. Varick. The name rang a bell. Pierce did a simple search for the name in Chicago. Along with Army, he came up with Roger Varick, the new head of Bloom Security for Chicago. He was also a significant shareholder in Bloom and a supposed innovator in security technology. A cross-check confirmed it. The same guy. There was his picture. Curly brown, receding hair-lined face. Nearly lipless smile. Broad shoulders. Former major in the U.S. Army. Delta Force. His family had long-term investments in Bloom. He joined the corporation after retiring from the military about a year and a half ago. That was some pretty damn quick advancement at the Bloom Corporation, right out of the box. But then Varick had inside connections through his family. And maybe he brought some military tech out with him to sweeten the deal. Had he smuggled out classified tech? It was possible. That possibility was something to remember. If Varick was the new head of Bloom Security, he would be aware of Aiden Pierce. Pierce didn't have a big problem with the Bloom Corporation. In fact, he relied on the company. But there he had Bloom factions who had gotten on Pierce's bad side. Factions who had connections with the club. Namely, the Chicago South Club, which was otherwise known as the Irish Mob, formerly run by the late, not-so-lucky Lucky Quinn. Quinn's son was rumored to be planning to take the club over now. Had this been a club attack on him today? Was Varick connected with the club? Could be that Varick arranged the attempted hit through Mick Wolf. Maybe Varick had found out Wolf had known Pierce, and after making a deal with Wolf, he'd gotten a thug from the club to take a shot at him. But if Wolf had been setting up the hit, why warn the target that someone was about to shoot him down? Maybe he had a change of heart at the last moment. Pierce's gut told him Mick Wolf hadn't been involved in the attempted hit, though. There had been astonishment in that voice when Wolf had warned him. Wolf had seemed genuinely surprised by the assassination attempt. But how had they known where he was going to be, if not through Wolf? Could be that someone watching for the vigilante had spotted him driving through the area and made a call. The tail had responded to the call and started following him. That faint tingling in the back of his neck had warned Pierce. The van seen once too many times in the rear-view mirror. Before he'd parked and walked over to where he was to meet Wolf, Pierce looked around for that van and hadn't seen it. He'd decided it was safe, but just to be sure, he put his phone on camera scramble. Once he got onto the block where the meeting was to be, he didn't want CTOS to know exactly where he was. He had known he was taking a chance, an unusual chance, going out there. But though the message's sender hadn't identified himself, Pierce had suspected that the code phrase had come from Mick Wolf. He'd heard the kid was back in town. Not such a kid. An ex-soldier, in his mid-20s now. And Wolf was probably almost the last person alive who knew that code phrase. Pierce felt he owed something to Mick Wolf, because the bomb blast that had taken Mick Wolf's father out of the picture was just another crime that had been, indirectly, Aiden Pierce's fault. Back in the day, when Pierce was a teen in the South Yards gang, Colin Wolf had warned Pierce that he was going to the police to give evidence. Colin had been his friend, and he'd given Pierce a chance to cover his tracks, move to another territory. But a fellow gang thumper had warned the bosses that Colin was going to rat on their operation. Same guy who got the job of taking care of the rat. And boom, the whole top of Colin Wolf's house had been blown away, dissolving into a ball of fire and raining debris. After that, Aiden had done what he could to befriend the kid. He'd come around from time to time, talking to Mick for the sake of his father, trying to get him to agree to stay out of the gangs. He couldn't be seen with the boy in public a lot, but he'd taken him with him on a rented cabin cruiser out on Lake Michigan more than once. Until Mick had moved to another ward when his ma remarried, Pierce had lost touch. Maybe the kid knew that Aiden Pierce had inadvertently caused his father's death. Not really Pierce's fault when you thought about it, but still, maybe Mick Wolf wanted to punish Pierce for it. After what happened today, I shouldn't trust Mick Wolf. But Pierce's instincts told him that Mick Wolf wasn't his enemy, and the kid had managed to find him when no one else had, which meant that Wolf was pretty damned effective. If there was confirmation that Wolf hadn't set him up, then maybe Wolf could do some work for Aiden Pierce. Pierce was going to have to keep his grazed head down, keep it all on the extra down low a while, until he found out who tried to assassinate him. It occurred to him that it might not have been a case of someone just spotting Aiden Pierce and dropping a dime. It might have been one of his own people, someone he worked with around town. There was a handful of people he trusted. Had one of them found out where he was going that day? If so, they'd gotten paid for turning over that information. And it was up to Pierce to find out who was getting paid and who was paying the bill, because now he had a payment to make of his own. Or, to be precise, pay back for someone creasing his skull with a bullet. And in Chicago, payback is a bitch.